Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Banterly, the Gen Z podcast about pop culture, media, and everything in between. My name is Suha.
And my name is Aidan, and welcome back, everybody. What is going on in your world, Suha? What's on your mind?
I saw Twister in 4DX on Tuesday night, which was fantastic. Theater was sold out.
Tyler Owens calls himself a tornado wrangler. If you feel it, chase it! I said if you feel it, chase it! All right, here we go.
It was very crowded, but it was like so worth it. I'd never done a 4DX movie, but I'd seen that this specific one was like trending on TikTok. That was crazy. 2 hours, you are spinning, you are shaking, there is water coming into your face, there's air, smoke, the whole thing. And you get to do it while Glenn Powell is like staring you down on a big screen. So it was a pretty good experience.
Wow. I've never been to a 4DX movie, but I have been to I think it's just regular 4D. But when Spy Kids 4 came out with Jessica Alba and Rowan Blanchard, it was 4D and they had like, scratch this and sniff this at this scene. And like a number would show up. Then you'd smell it so you could smell what they're smelling.
Yeah, I thought 4DX, I expected it to be like, I thought you had to have glasses. I thought it was like a 3D immersive experience, but this one was just 2D. The only 4D experience I had before this was at Universal Studios, the Shrek ride. It's like, the Shrek ride is like a movie, like a short Shrek film, and then 4D movements to accompany it. But yeah, I'd seen it on TikTok, and so me and my friends went, and yeah, it was really fun. It was like a good movie generally too. The issue is that like it's meant to be a drama and received as a drama, like has everything to build a good drama. But when you're moving, shaking, spinning out, everything becomes a comedy. And so we were definitely laughing at inappropriate scenes, but luckily the entire theater was. So it was just like a fun, I think, theater experience. But yeah, how about you?
I just watched this movie the other night. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Love Lies Bleeding with Kristen Stewart.
So where did you appear from? Oklahoma? I've never been anywhere but here.
I didn't really know a whole lot about it. I just heard good things. And wow, you guys, it is thrilling. I was at the edge of my seat for the whole entire time. The cinematography was really amazing. The acting was really good. Just a loose plot. Kristen Stewart plays this like gym manager named Lou, who's a part of this crime family in this small town in the American Southwest. I'm not sure if it's like Nevada or Utah or where it is. Then this female bodybuilder comes into town. They end up becoming in a romantic relationship, and this female bodybuilder gets involved with the crime that this family's a part of. And wow, 10 out of 10 recommend. It's on Max. It's pretty critically acclaimed, I think.
I think so. I think I'd seen an ad for it before I saw some movie in the theaters a couple months ago, and it looked really good. I think it filmed in New Mexico, so I like immediately went to that, and I was like, oh my god.
But it was, it's a little gory, but it's just my heart. Oh, if anybody's looking for a movie to watch when they're wanting to feel a little adrenaline, watch Love Lies Bleeding. 10 out of 10 recommend. Well, our question of the day today is, which historical legend would you want to become besties with?
Yes. Okay. My answer is Mansa Musa, and it's twofold. First, we share a last name, and because I'm African, it's been really easy to convince people that he was my forefather, even though we've originated on entirely different sides of the continent. So I think it'd be kind of funny. I would like to tell him that joke, like, oh my god, everyone thinks we're related. Obviously, one of us is much more famous than the other. And then my second reason is he bankrupted Egypt's economy on the way from Mali, like the Mali kingdom, from which he was king, to Saudi Arabia. Because of how much gold he brought on that trip, he literally bankrupted the Egyptian economy. And I just need to talk to the man who did that, because I think that's such a cool thing to say you've done. So, yeah, I'd say Mansa Musa, I'd like to be his bestie, because he's also so rich, and so I would like to reap those rewards as well. But what about you?
That's a great answer. I originally chose someone a little bit more modern. I chose Marilyn Monroe because I'm obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. But after you said that, I want to take us back in time too a little bit. And I would want to become besties with, she's not a super well-known historical figure, but Theodora, the Empress of the Byzantine Empire at one point.
Oh my God.
I did my term paper on her in 10th grade, I think. And just a loose background about her story, she used to be a prostitute and then she became empress. So I titled my term paper From Ho to High. I thought that was the funniest, most creative title ever.
That's really good.
I don't remember a whole lot about her life. I'll have to take that out of the archive and read it again. But for some reason, I chose her as my term paper project. And yeah, I think we would be good friends. I think she maybe would have had a little chuckle at the title of that. That's it. But Marilyn Monroe would be cool too. But Empress Theodora, let's go back to the Byzantines.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. I like that. On the topic of historical legends, old people, living legends, today's episode is about the show Hacks, the critically acclaimed TV show that explores generational clashes, stand-up comedy, and all that fun stuff.
Marty wants to cut my dates. He said he needs to appeal to a younger crowd. You need to do something about this, Jimmy. Damien! I need you to go to the computer store! When you talk that sweet talk.
But before we get into all of that, I just want to know, Aidan, what would you rate the show?
I love this show. I watched it when it first came out in 2021, and it's always just been, like, I know I'm not going to be disappointed when I watch it. I know that I'm going to be entertained. I'd say a good an 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. Like, she's old, reliable. She's funny. I like the characters. I like the beat. How about you?
I would probably give it maybe a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. We'll talk more about that later. I think it's like a good like show to kind of fall back on, like when you don't know if there's anything else to watch. But I think I prioritize like the relationships between people when I'm watching shows, and sometimes it felt like that didn't get explored as much as I wanted. But yeah, like I said, we'll talk more in depth in a bit. But before we get into that, Aidan, can you give us a brief summary of the show?
Yes, let me break it down for everybody who hasn't seen it. Very, very broadly, but this show is set in Vegas, all about show business, the comedy scene in Vegas, and it follows the famous comedian Deborah Vance, who's been around for decades with specials and hosting and shows and the big shebang. She's pretty big, but she finds herself stuck in a rut doing the same Las Vegas shows over and over again till the company decides to cut her shows. Management comes in and brings in this young comedic writer named Ava Daniels to kind of refreshen her content. And at first the two butt heads, but then they learn to really love and care about each other and make some quality content, the two of them. Each of them brings a lot of different things to the table, and the show just follows their relationship ups and downs as they try to revive Deborah's career through new material, a tour, a special, and then, spoiler alert, the end of season 3 ends with Deborah getting all that she wanted, a late night show.
That was really good. Thank you for that. I feel like I just watched it all over again. Yeah, the show is great. It has a ton of important characters, which I like. I like that the cast is like concentrated, but not too concentrated. You know, I think when I first started watching the show, I expected it to just be Deborah and Ava as the focuses. But I really like that there's Marcus, who's Deborah's like CEO of her media conglomerate and like confidant of many years.
Do you know she made me clear her schedule for the last 2 weeks? And Deborah's built a loyal audience for years, and that's the foundation of our business. So this whole soul-bearing thing sounds very off-brand.
There's Jimmy Jr., her agent, DJ, her daughter. DJ does stand for Deborah Jr.
And look, I get it. I'm not perfect, right? I'm always going to be a work in progress.
Yeah.
But I'm finally able to practice radical acceptance, right? So I can just radically accept that my mom is a cunt.
Kayla, who is Jimmy's assistant and my personal favorite on the show.
You told me to like interrupt you when more important clients call, and Deborah Vance is on the line, and like she's not like as important. So just like kind of giving you a heads up.
Kayla, can you set her up somewhere comfortable, please?
Absolutely.
I like how the show, like you said, doesn't just focus on Deborah and Ava. We get a lot of side quests going on. We have Marcus's journey with his career and his relationship with Deborah. And then the scenes with Jimmy and Kayla are just some of the best in the show.
What if I tweeted something like, Deborah got the job? I mean, the network's never going to backtrack if it's already out there. Okay, that's genius.
Kayla, do not tweet anything, okay? We are so close.
Was
to
it
the
easy
finish
for
line
you to
here.
watch, do you think, all the way through? Or was it kind of like, was there any hesitancy on your part? Like, oh, maybe not my favorite?
I don't remember how I started watching the show because this wasn't the type of show that I saw a lot on TikTok about, or my friends weren't talking a whole lot about it. I must have just been perusing Max. And I think it came out over the summer, so I might have been in a summer lull. And I watched the first season and I thought it was good. I thought it was funny. It wasn't the funniest show I've ever seen, and it wasn't the best show I've ever seen, but something about it kept me watching. And I'm glad I did because I watched season 2 when it came out. I liked it better. And then season 3 when it came out. And season 3 has been my favorite season so far. I think I laughed more than I did in the other seasons. I think I understood the dynamics a little bit better. But one thing that I guess that does hook you is this show knows how to do a season finale. Every season finale is you get some closure, but you also get like a, oh my gosh, well now I have to wait for a whole nother season to find the answers. So it started out with like oh, I like this show, but now I do really love this show. It's like I said, I know I'm going to be entertained when I watch it.
Yeah, I would agree with your analysis of like season 1 was so. Like, I think it was very much the entire season was story setting, which is typical for a show like this. It needs to keep you engaged for real storylines later. And I think the general themes that the show like brings to light in a very comedic way are really cool. My favorite of them is likely the generational divide, specifically within like creativity or what constitutes funny, which they only really explored that in season 3. Like, I think it was the second to last episode of the season where Deborah gets canceled for her old jokes.
This is insane! Me! I am being taken down by a liberal mob! Me, who was the first person to be fined by the FCC for saying the word abortion on TV!
I think that generational divide is something that is prevalent throughout. I think the dynamic between Deborah and Ava, there's a lot to talk about there. They make the show. It's all really about their relationship. But before we dive into some deeper discussion about some specific episodes, are you team Deborah or team Ava?
I think I'm rooting for team Deborah and Ava in parentheses, but healthy. I think they have an unhealthy codependence on each other. Which, like, that's part of it, right? I think especially Ava, because part of it earlier, her staff was like, you need to set boundaries. So I think I'm team them, supporting and being there for each other, but in a healthy way.
Yeah. I'm sure it's the same for you and you have people in your life like this, but I meet a lot of older people in my life, whether they're in my family, people I meet who are always like, oh, well, back in my day, you had to do this. And they look at our generation with a certain, like, wow, they don't want to work. They're done doing all this. Like, why do they care about all these issues? Like all this stuff. And I think that this show does a good job of kind of putting those two things together because Deborah represents that older generation. She was a woman in comedy decades before there were a lot of women in comedy, and she kind of had to fight for her right to be in that room and learn how to adapt in this male-dominated industry. And now that she's older and she's kind of on a, what's it called? When you're just cruising, a plateau. She's been doing the same thing over and over again. I think she's a little afraid of change because she already took so many risks to get there. Like she's just playing it safe. And then Ava comes in, the young Gen Z is like, rah, 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 like change, pronouns, everything, LGBT, and trying to like teach Deborah that she's not afraid to take risks and she's taking Deborah out of her shell. So I think in terms of their dynamic, they can learn a lot from each other. Ava can learn how to be a little bit less, she complains a lot more than Deborah. And then Deborah can learn to come out of her shell.
I think you're right. Like, there's a lot she needs to learn. I think about like how change isn't maybe like just something you talk about or like you post about, but like very much something that requires time to overcome. And Deborah needs to like take that like the world is changing around her and it's Like it's keep up or move out, type of thing.
Why don't you just apologize?
No. Never apologize for a joke.
Yeah, you keep saying that, but why not?
Because you just don't, okay?
Good one.
Besides, if I apologize, it'll just add fuel to the fire.
Deborah.
I can't be woke. I'm exhausted.
Okay.
So I believe,
I know this
and
feels like
correct
the
me
end of
if
the
you
world.
disagree, please. Let's have a discussion. But I think that the two of them are platonic soulmates, and maybe that's the wrong way to describe their relationship. But let me describe it. If maybe there's another word for it, but I think that Ava and Deborah are so similar. I think that neither of them have very many close people in their life. They have trouble keeping relationships, and they're career obsessed.
You wrote, wow.
Okay, who are you, the court stenographer? What the fuck?
Oh, come on, Ava. Everyone knows you're like this career-obsessed opportunist.
So we weren't exactly all rushing to defend you when everything went down. Sorry to be so blunt, but we're on
And
coke.
what we learn from Deborah is that she's not afraid to play dirty to get what she wants, which in the end Ava knows how to do. But their relationship, it's like, oh, they make one step forward, oh, but then there's two steps back. Like you said, very toxic. But it's not the classic like maternal relationship you see with like older characters and younger characters on a show. And Deborah finally met her match after all those years. She met someone who is just like her, and I think that was scary for her.
I think on Deborah's part, it was very clear that she felt like she'd met her match in Ava, but I think there was a little less on like Ava's part. Like it didn't become clear to me that Ava wanted this as more than a job than anything. Like at least earlier in season 1, it didn't seem clear that she really did want to invest in a learning opportunity. Kind of seemed like, oh, she was on the outs with Hollywood because of a tweet she'd made and just needed a gig. And so I think that's where it took a little bit longer for us to see that maybe in Ava, like why would she want to work with a comedian decades her senior who isn't as quote unquote woke as she likes, which then they explore a little bit, right? But yeah, I think it took a little bit longer for me to feel like Ava felt as invested in their relationship as Deborah did. The season 1 finale, you can say it over and over. This show knows how to do a season finale. The first season's finale, Ava quits her job. They had like a big fight and like it just wasn't working for them. And her dad had passed away. And Deborah kind of greeted it with a very cold shoulder when Ava said she needed to leave. But later on, Deborah shows up at the funeral and she does a really beautiful, it's not even a eulogy, but like a remembrance of life
lose a
for
loved one.
Ava's dad when no one wanted to talk.
And now everybody's uncomfortable because they think that no one has anything nice to say about this man. And I know that you do. Not because I knew him, I didn't, but I know his daughter. And I know that he had to be a very special person to raise someone like her.
She was like, I know this man meant something to you. So she asked them like funny experiences they had, which I think really did a great job in showing how Deborah can play any crowd, including grievers at a funeral. But yeah, and then she bombs her last show at the Palmetto where she's been doing a years long residency. She decides to go for new material for her 2500th show, which is also her last show because the Palmetto said, you're not bringing the people like you used to. But she bombs. She tries her new material. It's more confessional. And then they reunite in the end and they run off into the sunset.
Great summary. It feels like I'm watching. I almost teared up when you were talking about the funeral because that scene, when I was rewatching it, made me cry. Seeing Ava's mom, who's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I guess that her husband just died, so I'm going to give her a pass. But seeing her look at his cousin when he was telling the story about him throwing up in her shoes, and she was like, laugh, crying, like, oh my God, I forgot. Ah, it gives me chills. Like, Deborah has a heart. Deborah's heart only comes out a few times a year, but it came out to that funeral, and I think Ava was like, wow, she really cares about me.
I think that was a perfect way to end season 1, knowing that this relationship for them both went beyond the comedy writing. Like it truly was like they were in each other's personal lives now, which maybe that adds to the toxicity in some ways. It definitely does. But it also like brings really beautiful moments like that. Like I think that was probably my favorite scene in season 1, if not one of my favorites in the entire show, because yeah, like Deborah as an older woman. And I think this is just a stereotype generally of baby boomers who they are a very work focused generation and they tend to leave like the emotions out of it. They maybe don't prioritize like mental health or like emotional well-being as much as younger generations do. So to see that moment where she really encompasses like a humane side but sticks true to her character of doing it through humor, I think was just a really beautiful way to close out and like show maybe even a sense of character progression in one scene. So because the show is a through and through comedy, what did you think of the stand-up and the show writing itself?
I like the comedic style of this show. I like how it's very dry and it's all about the delivery. I feel like I think if they just gave the script to someone and they were like, here, read this, it takes a certain type of delivery to really make the jokes hit. And sometimes they're quick and you might miss them. It's not the type of show like Abbott Elementary. I'm like laughing out loud. This is not a laugh out loud type of show. I might do like a like that type of laugh, but I'm not going to be like have to pause the show to contain myself.
I think I agree. I think it's very much like it's funny and the moment kind of passes you if you don't pay attention, which I like. I think going into the show, because I knew I was like, oh, they're writing for stand-up comedy, I think I expected it to be similar to Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is another show about like a stand-up female comedian. But that show I think is very different in that like the jokes are kind of concentrated to when Mrs. Maisel is on stage, and the rest of the show feels a little bit more dramatic. Whereas this one I think is a comedy through and through. And I do like the like dry humor that it encompasses, but I think sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I'm not gonna laugh out loud. Like you said, like Abbott Elementary or Veep or even The Bear at some moments. I think the show is funnier than the jokes that they write for Deborah.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Did you have any favorite jokes that stuck out to you?
Just anything Kayla says. I'm gonna be so honest. Like that when she shows up in lingerie in the honeymoon suite and she's like,
Hey.
I needed to sell it.
Holy shit, what are you doing? Why are you wearing lingerie?
It's not lingerie, it's regular pajamas.
Okay, why are you wearing regular pajamas?
So it looks more believable that we're on our honeymoon.
What?
Oh, the hotel thinks we're on our honeymoon. That's how I got us this amazing room.
Us? Oh my god. I thought
That girl is just so funny. And I think it's funny because I think she embodies that type of assistant. And her and Jimmy are such well positioned foils to each other where he started to gain a weird appreciation for her, which I really like. And so I think their little side quests always like, if I'm starting to zone out just a little bit, the second I see those two back on my screen, like at the Christmas episode, for instance, when they go and try to talk to the family of a comedian that they're trying to force a movie about. She's just so funny in every moment that I see her. And even in the way she interacts with Deborah, where Deborah brushes her off in the funniest ways of like, what is she doing here? Like, who is, like, what is this? But I like that she kind of has to always stick around and like, you know, she's so loyal to Jimmy. She left her father's company to stay as his assistant. She said me trust fund, S2 trust fund. I thought that was the funniest thing ever. I just love her. I know that you like a lot of the jokes that Deborah says, right?
I do. I think Deborah has some funny, not the stuff that she's doing. Some of the stuff she does on her show, yes, but some when she's insulting people is so funny. I liked a lot of her dynamics with her daughter and jokes involving her daughter. I think there was one on her show when she was like, I missed my daughter's first steps. Maybe that's the reason she did 12 more. Like, damn. And I also like Ava and Deborah's back and forth. Like in the first season, they had a lot of moments where they were like when they first
I'm on
met.
my way out. By the way, so cool they let you move into a cheesecake factory.
Oh, is that where you wait tables? That seems like a better fit.
Oh yeah, I agree, you classist monster.
I think they have a nice banter relationship.
I think my favorite interaction between them, I think, was the season 3 premiere.
Lady, I don't know what to tell you, okay? It's fugly ass. It's giving Big Bird.
Oh my god. You know nothing about fashion. You dress like you're about to have lunch on a steel girder.
Hey, whatever. You can
I thought that was so good because it was true. It's a show that has a lot of really great, like, quippy one-liners that I think, I don't know, sometimes I hear something they say and I'm like, oh, I should start saying that.
Some funny lines. She's a funny girl.
Oh, yeah. It's a good show.
It is a good show. Should we end with a little fun question? Our favorite type of question? Marry, shag, kill. Damien, Kathy, and Ava's mom. Sorry, that was really bad.
That's a really bad set of 3 people. Okay, I'm gonna kill Deborah's sister. I'm sorry. Like, who runs off with their sister's husband? That woman is untrustworthy. I don't care if they make up. I would never forgive her. I guess I'm gonna shag Ava's mom? I don't think I can spend a lifetime with her. That woman has a lot of personal problems to work through. And I guess I'm marrying Damon. I think we could have a good... He's very gay, but we could have a good, like, cohabitation situation going on. He's very well organized. I appreciate that in a man. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna ask you a question. If you had to be stranded on a deserted island with one of these characters, who would you pick?
Deborah. Oh my god. She'd get a helicopter out in no time.
No. No phones. Like, it is just you and this person. No resources. You're scavenging for your life.
So we're spending the rest of our lives on this island?
No, you could escape, but you have to make it, like, you have to work for it. Like, you have to, like, build a banana boat or something. So
then Marcus. I think Marcus is pretty organized and resourceful.
Okay. That's a good pick. I could rock with that.
Who would you choose?
Probably jumping off the island.
With nobody?
I don't think any of these people would be good to do that with. Are you joking me? I'd rather die. That's my issue, though, is when I think of, like, a deserted island, as a zombie apocalypse, my first thought is just to do it myself. Like, because also, is that a world you want to return to? So I'm always like, oh, I would just die. Like, I would just let myself die. Especially in the case of a zombie apocalypse. That's not something I need to survive, because what's the world gonna be like after? Again, why do we keep going back to these morbid thoughts? I'm so sorry. Oh my god.
Let us know your thoughts about hacks. Share your thoughts with us, Banterly at immigrantlypod.com, and engage with us on our socials at Immigrantly Media on Instagram and at Immigrantly Podcast on TikTok.
Banterly is produced by Shay Yu, written by us, the co-hosts Suha Musa and Aidan Taylor. The executive producer and editorial review is done by Sadia Khan.
Our sound designer and editor is Lou Raskin. The Banterly theme music is by Simon Hutchinson, and additional music is by Epidemic Sound.
See y'all next week.